Good morning, everybody. If you're watching this as a rerun, yeah, you feel free to skip ahead here. Oh, roughly 14 minutes. And we can get going into the radio side of things. Back to basics today. That's set. Most of my iPad went dead, so I'm running this off of a different situation today. Mr. Bulgy, good morning, sir. Are you ready for a storm system headed your way? Because it is, it is hit us last night over about midnight. Eric, good morning. I got like hardly any battery left in everything I own here. All right. Man. Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah. Brian, good morning, Mr. Bulgy. Taking 1 inches in your area. Okay. Saw me on Ranch America last night. Really? Okay. Good deal. Hopefully I didn't break the camera. Am I wore out this morning? You're damn right. I barely got the damn elk skin just in time and quartered up just to go in and do the Calcutta for the Coyote tournament. I got a lot of work today after I get done feeding cows. I'll tell you that. And it is nasty out here this morning. The wind is howling pretty good. Morning, Jim. From negative 11 in, man. Really? I haven't even checked the forecast what we're at here. The damn studio's cold, I tell you that. It is 1 above with mist, is what it says on the weather application here today. Ham's proud. Yeah, I was. Usually I have Cherry McGillicuddy with me, and I didn't even have that here for a kill shot. Dave, good morning. It was an 8x6. Nothing. Wasn't a big guy. I don't know. Is YouTube going to kick me off of here? I don't know. I didn't take any pictures myself. This is my hired hand came up to help me. Is one of the biggest bodied elks that I've ever had to take care of. I'll tell you that stuff right now. So got it done 2 days before the closing of the season. So sorry I didn't get any other pictures. Didn't do that. All right. I got to see where I'm at time-wise here. 6:56. Okay. Eric, last 2 storms have caught me unprepared. Got pickup stuck in the section line and not sure I want to try to pull it out today. Plus, skid steer is still on the pasture. Thanks, Josh. Levi, no. That's a story for another time. Eric, thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you, Waylon. Wayne, that's the only picture I really have of the elk right there. Okay. That's the only thing I really have. I got the one that I took a picture out in the pasture when I walked up on it. I got that one. He's a huge bodied son of a gun. Man, he was big. So I did not take any good photos of him. I really did not. So thank you, Mr. Cox. Jeez. Seems like I need to take some ivermectin here. Let's call Jamie and get him hooked up. It was a great hunt. Okay. I'm just going to say this off of so I don't say it on the air. Joe Miller, a neighbor, he was out feeding cows, spotted him. And it was that group of elk that I had about a month ago at my place. And he just sat there and waited for me to get there, and we got in on him and had to call 4 neighbors, and all 4 neighbors were good to go on this. But I took the first lung shot, was 756 yards. And then he turned his butt toward me. Of course, I'm shooting suppress, so the other ones didn't move. He turned his butt to me, and then he turned and he looked at me, and I'm like, well, the heck with you. At 766 yards, I put one right behind his ear, and it was at an angle, and it blew out his jaw. That pretty much sent him down. So 750, I will say 756 yards was the first shot. That's what I'm saying I took him at. So love that rifle. Love that scope on it. So 307 number here. That's new here. Confirmed with a spotter, by the way, 756 yards. I really should not have gotten my pickup in there to get him either.
Hello.
Mr. Jamie Olson.
Good morning, Scott.
How you doing?
Doing good. Enjoying the winter, enjoying the weather. Been nice out here.
It's been nice, but last night a storm moved in up here, and it is kind of sporty out there this morning.
Sporty.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been hearing some rumblings that Kansas is supposed to be getting some big blasts, so I would imagine we're going to be in the...
Station 7 o'clock on the nose here, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock Central Time. Coming up your way on Mark. So my wife took her, we both got drawn for a gratis elk tag this year.
Oh, nice.
She got hers Christmas morning. I got mine yesterday morning.
Well, congratulations. It was nice.
Hers was a much easier retrieval. And
you planned that, though, right?
Well, you're always going to give the first option to the wife. If you're not, you're mistaken. I'll tell you that.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
So what'd you end up getting? You get a couple nice bulls then, or?
She got a raghorn, and the reason was because, one, she wanted something that was good eating, and two, it was literally 100 yards north of the house, and then when we got on them, she shot it. It was like right on the trail that I go feed cows on, so it was like right there.
Perfect.
Right,
yeah.
400. It was just a raghorn, 405-yard shot. Yesterday, mine was an 8x6, 756-yard shot, and it was probably not the smartest area of me to drive in and get it, but I got it. So,
but I got it.
Yeah. I had three people.
That's what horses are for.
Well, true, but I was not in a close enough area to go and just go quick grab my horses.
Right. Well, if you throw that truck, it's probably easiest.
Hydraulics over hernias, man.
I've packed a few elk on horseback. That's always an adventure. If you got a pack horse with and some or some panniers, it isn't.
Yeah.
You know, it isn't terrible. I've done it by myself before. I mean, I had a client with, they just kind of stand there and watch you do it, but
yeah,
it takes a couple minutes.
I got one horse I wouldn't have a problem with it. The other one, I better have 100-foot lead rope on that son of a gun because it would take a while for him to get used to coming in that close on that.
Yeah, I don't know that they get over it pretty quick. I don't know. We always kind of weed those out. So if they get kind of spoofy around that stuff, they're not safe to have up there. But
nah,
usually we have pretty good horses.
Safe. No worries about that.
I tell you what, over the years of hunting in the mountains, there's been a number of train wrecks. Killed some horses.
Yeah, I don't
sent
doubt
guys
that.
to the hospital, some air flights, that kind of stuff.
You need mules, is what you need. Those things are just steadfast.
I don't know. I mean, they got other problems. I've been on pack lines with mules and donkeys, and the mules themselves. The guys that have them, and they really like them a lot. I can say that much.
Yeah.
I mean, I was around some mules. We went up to Wind River for about a week. Camp was at 8,500 feet. We were up there in July scouting elk, and we had 20 horses with, and we had a few of those mules, and I don't know, they're fine. Horses are fine too.
Yeah.
You just got to have good critters. And,
yeah, you guess there's another mind involved in that whole thing. So.
Well, we don't use quarter horse, so a lot of times people from the Midwest go up to the mountains and they take their quarter horses with. They take their paddock horses, their roping horses, their show horses, and they go up to the mountains for a week. Well, when you're up in the, like out here, nobody's riding quarter horses around up in the mountains. They run half drafts, really stout horses, and they just, I don't know. You have to have that animal condition to the altitude and all that stuff that's going on. Just to grab your horse in the Midwest and drag it out here. I mean, you could have some fantastic horses, but Anyways, I get to ride really good horses, horses that they're bred and raised up in the mountains. So,
well, I know mine would not be acclimated to it, and that's just fine. But my old Charlie, I think he'd do okay. He's not a speed demon by any means. He could acclimate himself by the time he got up to the top. Because it would be a slow walk here. Richard Walker, good morning. Appreciate you watching here on the show side of things here. All right. So before we get going here, Jamie, on the radio side, back to basics. Like I told you here, we'll just go back to like we don't know. I don't know what's anything about coyote hunting. We'll talk about that. And I got so many people that are on Facebook right now, especially on the South Dakota coyote calling page that are there's so many new people that are getting into coyote calling. So,
like gear, clothing. I mean, is it just like
it's a little bit of?
I mean, they're asking like
it's a little bit of everything, but mostly how to get to how to set up and all the basic stuff. Right? Between East River, West River, different terrains and what have you. So stand by here. We're 20 seconds away from starting. 20 seconds. Stations here, 15 seconds ago on mark. Good morning and welcome to the Saturday edition of Dakota Prairie Outdoors, heard all across the Dakota Territory on great radio stations like KGFX out of Pierce, South Dakota, KOLY Mobridge, K-Fire 550 in Bismarck, Mandan, KLTC in Dickinson, and KCJB, where I cut my teeth on the radio board in Minot. Good to have you along here this morning as we continue another. I'd like to say it's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, but the storm moved in last night. We got winds gusting up to 50 miles an hour here at the ranch, and it's only one above right now. Jamie Olson, Box Creek Outfitters, and a longtime coyote hunter is joining me here this morning. Jamie, tons of coyote tournaments going on. I did a Calcutta last night for the Rame tournament. Here, do people understand in Calcutta is the more you spend and buy yourself for, the more money you'll make. And these people are looking for bargains. I don't understand it. That's not what a Calcutta is.
That's not what a Calcutta is.
That's not what a Calcutta is. So, no. So last night, everybody, it was a great turnout. These smaller towns having these tournaments. Jamie, you've run tournaments all across the country and have been actively involved in many of the tournaments too. And some of the first ones I got into were a lot of ones that you were running all across the Dakota Territory in North and South Dakota. And what makes a successful coyote tournament?
Having a plan.
How so?
So we used to have, we were doing a bunch of tournaments. We had it all kind of laid out as far as every stand so it started out with a group of coyotes that we were going to work on, and then right down to where we were going to sit. It might vary a little bit with the wind to have a kind of a backup, but generally the places I'm calling with a west wind, I'm not calling with an east wind. But yeah, it starts out with having a plan. So like two guys, you're going to probably want to be doing, if you're hustling somewhere on the low end, probably in that 12, 14 stands in the day, hopefully upwards to 18 to 20 stands in the day. That's with the two guys splitting up. maybe still have one vehicle, depending on the rules, but that would be splitting up. And then you kind of have to be. So when we were doing all these tournaments, especially way back when we started, we had cards everybody filled out as far as it was just for information, but basically how long were you on stand, kind of what direction were you facing, blah, blah, blah. What direction did the wind come from? Bunch of information like that. And one of the things that really stood out was that most of the coyotes and coyote tournaments, you're probably looking at about 50% of your coyotes were killed in the first 3 hours of the day.
Yep.
You have another 20-25% killed in the late afternoon, and then everything else killed, throughout the day. So having that plan for the morning, you can't just willy-nilly it, I guess.
Yeah.
I would say having a plan is probably one of the most important things, and then knowing how long to sit on stand. I don't know. I don't want to just jump around over on this stuff. We used to go. We used to go in and locate. We pre-scout all those areas. Make sure that we're not just calling on location. That we're actually calling where there's animals. Using a siren is a great idea for that. We used to split up a lot. The best time to be doing locating isn't in the middle of the night. The best time to locate is first thing in the morning, or right at dusk, as soon as the yard lights start turning on. And you have a couple hours in the morning, a couple hours in the afternoon, but most of your coyotes are going to be in those core areas during that period of time. And so when you're locating coyotes during the right time of day, when you come back in the morning, they should be all settled into that pocket that you're going to call. But you got to have a plan. I think guys just kind of go out and make some coffee and go hit some spots, and see how it goes. But
you look at a lot of these teams, they're not probably doing that. I mean, they're living around that same area. They're like, I see coyotes when I feed cows every morning over here, or what have you. And there's nothing wrong with that either, right? But they've added now. I mean, most of these coyote tournaments now are 24 hours. So there's a lot of people using their thermals out at night. How has that changed the coyote tournament scene, having 24-hour hunts now?
I think it's changed it a bunch. I think the night calling. So
it doesn't sound like you're a fan of it, but what's going on?
Well, it's just a matter of knowing where your coyotes are going to be. Like if you're out there trying to call coyotes, and I've got guys out here that really struggle with calling coyotes in the daytime. But when they're calling at night, they're calling areas where coyotes are hunting in, and maybe not necessarily where they're living in.
Right.
Like in the daytime, a lot of my coyotes, if they're receiving any kind of pressure at all, or maybe no pressure at all, are kind of lounging around in the middle of the daytime, but they're in those core areas. At night, especially in a heavily populated or a pressured area population, like North Dakota, there's a lot of, it's not a very heavily populated state, but there's a lot of traffic in those areas. There's roads every mile. So those cows kind of get used to seeing people in the daytime, and they just kind of will settle down, bed up someplace. But at night, they're out hunting. Well, the coyotes that you're finding at 2 o'clock in the morning aren't necessarily in locations that you would find them at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Right.
And so it's not like a frustration that I think one is better than the other. I think they can be completely different types of hunts. It's like hunting coyotes out of an airplane. It doesn't mean it's not skillful when I do it, but it's not the same as the other ways of calling in coyotes or killing coyotes. There's advantages to it, and then there's some things that aren't as easy. But I would say that guys that are just calling exclusively at night are missing some of the pillars of scouting, which is locating your den pockets. So even if you don't have, it's like fishing, like scouting for fishing. I don't know if anybody would go fish a fishing tournament without pre-fishing the lake, I suppose, or at least have fished it in the past or scouted it. Same thing with whitetail. I mean, everybody would scout whitetail if they're going to go out hunting. You're not just, oh, that looks like a good spot for the weekend.
Right.
I think scouting for coyotes, people don't do a very good job of that. And that's a pretty, it's an hour before sunrise, half hour before sunrise, you could start, and even as late as 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. But you should be locating those. You've got your core areas that the coyotes are spending most of their time in, and those can be pretty small depending on the time of year. And then once it gets dark, all per se, it's whatever it is, 8 o'clock, 10 o'clock. But then they're starting to head out and hunt. And now you're hunting coyotes at night. I think you're hunting coyotes out in areas where they're hunting. And then in the daytimes, a lot of times you're hunting coyotes where they're sleeping.
Right.
If that makes any sense.
It does. It does make a lot of sense, and we're up against our first break here. So we're going to pause that, and we're going to come back and ask a few of the questions that I've seen on Facebook here. There's a lot of new guys going out and getting into the coyote hunting, Jamie. And so some of these questions I'm going to ask, and we're going to take it back to basics, basically, and do that. Jamie Olson is my guest here from Box Creek Outfitters, longtime coyote guy, and does it for a living. So he will have the answers for you. If you have questions, comments, feel free to call 888-9-DAKOTA. That's 888-932-5682 if you want to call in live. If you want to text your question, 701-425-6651. I'm also live chatting on my YouTube channel as well. We'll be back with more right after these messages. There's a reason you're seeing more Red Angus cattle in the country. Great mama cows, high weaning weights, and easy keepers. Join the Schriefer family for their annual production sale Saturday, January 27th at the ranch north of Golden Valley, North Dakota. Selling 2-year-old Red Angus bulls, first cycle fancy registered bred heifers, and commercial open replacement heifers. Serving flesh kila at noon, sale time 2 p.m. Central Time. The Schriefer Red Angus annual production sale Saturday, January 27th at the ranch north of Golden Valley.
For over 80 years, Dakota Community Bank and Trust has been a leader in ag financing because we understand the business of creating relationships is more than an interest rate. Agriculture is a foundation to the community, and we are here to help your operation expand, grow, and continue to the next generation. Talk to our ag lending team today.
Community looking out for you. At Dakota Community Bank and Trust, that's what we do.
Equal housing lender.
The 31st annual Top Cut Bull Sale is Saturday, January 25th at the 21 Angus Ranch, New England, North Dakota, 1 p.m. sale time. Selling 170 Top Cut bulls featuring proven sires like Baldridge Flagstone, Ellingson Badlands, Musgrave Stunner, and Baldridge Pappy. Born and raised right at the ranch to give you well-mannered, extremely uniform, and deep-bodied genetics. No hoof trimming, no creep feed, and free wintering. For a catalog or to view sale videos, go to 21angus.com. Join the Wolf family for their 31st annual 21 Angus Ranch Top Cut Bull Sale, Saturday, January 25th at the ranch east of New England. Bowman Livestock Marketing, serving the tri-state area for all of your livestock marketing needs. Eastern Montana, North Dakota, and South Dakota. You can be sure of great care for your cattle and top price at sale time. Call Austin Snook at 307-290-2161. That's 307-290-2161 for more information or just to talk cattle markets. You can also find them on Facebook and go to their website, bowmanlivestockmarketing.com.
Hey everyone, it's Kaylee at Soretti Charlotte Ranch. Our 42nd annual bull sale is January 24th at the ranch west of Bowman. We are offering 55 performance-tested yearling Charolais bulls, and new this year, 8 virgin age advantage Charolais bulls. As always, free delivery up to 300 miles, and we'll feed them free till April 1st. You can follow us at Facebook and DB Auction. Soretti Charlotte, January 24th. If you haven't tried a Soretti Charlotte bull, ask the cattleman that has. He's the one with the big smile on sale day.
This is Todd with Rounds Angus Union Center. We invite you to join us at the ranch Saturday, January 25th at 1 o'clock. The bulls look really good and are ready to go to work. From the rough Badlands country and river breaks to rolling hills with big pastures, they are ready to travel. Come take a look at an honest set of bulls out of an honest set of hardworking cows. Give us a call at 605-347-0890. Hope to see you sale day, January 25th at 1 o'clock.
This portion of the program is brought to you by Freedom Repair. Whether it's a tractor, baler, your cutter, your combine, or air seeder, Freedom Repair comes to you and helps you get fixed up and back in the field. 19 plus years experience. Give Lucas Kelly a call at 701-440-1945. That's 701-440-1945. Freedom Repair, veteran owned and operated. Piper's Auction and Realty would like to invite you to many of the land sales coming up in the month of January. Land sales in McHenry County, Pierce, Sheridan County, Kidder County, Dunn and Mercer, Pembina County, Marshall County, Minnesota, Pembina, Divide, Clay, Morton, Stutzman, Mercer, and Grant and Sioux counties all the way through the month of January. If you have questions or comments about any of these land auctions, you can go to pifers.com today. Western Frontier Insurance, agents that understand you, your needs, and the community. Whether you're looking for coverage on your farm, ranch, home, or auto, you can trust that Western Frontier Insurance will find you a combination of price and coverage that works for you. No fancy jingles, no talking boxes or talking animals, just good neighbors helping to keep you covered with price in mind. Western Frontier Insurance. Offices in Hazen, Washburn, Wilton, Bowman, and Hettinger.
On that road, but don't you worry, one day I'll settle down. And when that time comes, I hope you're still around. I hope you're still around. I hope you're still around.
Welcome back, everybody. Dakota Prairie Outdoors Saturday edition. Good to have you along. Just a reminder, the Schriefer Red Angus sale is timed online sale this year, January 20th to 25th. Make sure to join that. I got it here. I'm making sure. So making sure I get the right commercials in, and that one slipped into the wrong side. Got it. I tell you, sometimes I'm not on my game here, Jamie. I'm not on my game. I apologize. Schriefer Red Angus been good friends of mine, good people, and by golly, I grabbed the ad from last year and I put it in instead of this year's ad. They're doing a timed online one this year. And the only thing is, we're missing that great German meal. They had the best German meal up there. And you don't get that much. I haven't had that since my mom. So maybe that's why I accidentally put that commercial in there. But no, it's a timed online sale, January 20th to 25th. And if you want more information, go to SchrieferRedAngus.com, or you can also go to DV Auction. And so there you go. Coyote talking here. Jamie Olson, Box Creek Outfitters. And let me tell you what. East wind today. Coyote tournament, east wind. How do you play an east wind? Because I have never had luck.
My dad used to say, when it's from the west, it's the best. When it's from the east, it's the least.
Yeah.
And you really have to have areas that are, so what happens is these guys, because you predominantly have a north-northwest wind, west by northwest wind typically. And so most of your areas that you call in are all set up for that. And there's a reason why they work well for that, because of the way the terrain is shaped and how the coyotes are able to approach. And then when people have a different wind, they just go call the same spot and just come in from a different direction. And if you can read territory or read terrain well, I suppose that can work. But generally for me, the areas that I'm calling that have a east wind per se, or a south wind, those are going to be, for me anyway, a lot of times, those are going to be completely different spots.
Yeah.
You can get into areas, but but guys will spend a lot of time over a period of years really kind of refining where they're going to sit on that west wind. And then all of a sudden they get an east wind, and there's no thought put into it at all. They already drove over there. So they just kind of like, I don't know, they don't put the same amount of effort into it. So I think that's why people see less success during that stuff. But the setup, everything should be the same. That's okay. So the setup, one of the problems I had when I first started calling coyotes in was the amount of coyotes I had going downwind of me. I'm a trapper. I'm a full-time, used to work for the government trapping. All I do all year round is hunt coyotes, traps and snares and rifle and all that stuff. When I take trappers with me for the first time to go calling, they generally want to sit because they recognize where the trapping locations are, and that's where they want to sit a lot of times.
Right.
If you take somebody that's only done calling, they always want to just call on the top of the highest hill they can find. And there's some sort of happy medium there. One thing about being familiar with coyote movements as they pertain to a trap line is that you know where the approaches are coming from. You can see the areas that the coyotes are going to travel in order to get to your location, because you recognize those as great trapping locations or trail snare locations. And it will allow you to, so when you sit down on that hill, you need to take a minute and try to, see where those animals are comfortable approaching on. And what you want to do is make the areas that would be less comfortable as an approach, try to create a downwind area in that uncomfortable. So like if you're out, like really obvious stuff, if you're out calling and you've got a drain off to your left, a wide open prairie dog town off to your right, I would want to play that wind where it's working more towards that prairie dog town than that drainage. And then you can kind of extrapolate, out from there. That's why it's a good idea to do some locating prior to going into a spot, so you kind of know where the coyotes are and how they're going to approach you. Guys don't like taking a lot of time doing the locating side of it, but when you get into those spots where you have heard coyotes, you got to take a minute and try to read that terrain and what the approach is, and you're going to refine that as time goes by. But if you're new to this, I would try to get either a howler or a siren of sorts, and start doing some locating in the morning before sunrise on the areas that you're going to call, so you can kind of locate where your coyotes are sitting. And then when you work into those spots to do your calling, you don't necessarily have to work all the way into the property to the tallest hill on the property. A lot of times when I was flying around the airplane, that's where the coyotes were sitting. They would have the best spots, just like you would have. If you can look on the pasture and see where the most visibility is, a lot of times that's where your coyotes are sitting. I've seen it over and over again out of an airplane. And when you go walking in there, and you're like, geez, this is going to be great. There's tracks everywhere. Look at this.
Yeah.
And then you get there and then nothing comes in. Well, a lot of times that big hike you did into the property, you just moved everything in front of you. Yeah. Another thing guys will do, they'll have a piece of land, piece of private ground that nobody's hunted, and then in the ranch will be like, hey, you should come and hunt this. It's crawling with coyotes. And they'll pick the day before the tournament to go into an area that nobody's been into, right? So nice and quiet in there. And then they'll just drive through that whole thing, and they're scouting middle of the daytime, and they're like, oh, we've seen 10, 20, 30 coyotes. But then the next day, didn't see half as many.
Right. Chased everything out of there. So, chased everything out of there. They're really comfortable. And even, in my opinion, what I see over time on the ranches that I'm on, that those coyotes really get habituated to certain things. The diesel pickup showing up every morning to a water tank, after a period of time, isn't that big of a deal anymore. Yeah.
But if you get into a property and every lookout point you drive a pickup on the end of it so you could glass it, or every time you walk out to go look at something, you're out skylined out on a point with it, just looking around, skyline yourself, and there goes a coyote, there goes a coyote. I would not do that if I knew that. I mean, if you could scout it weeks ahead of time, kind of stick your nose in there, but I wouldn't do it the day before like that if you haven't been in there before. And I would do a lot of that on foot. I would be hiking through those properties, calling the drainages and stuff like that. So, I mean, if you got
Well, you said something like they get used to certain things. Like you get the guys that are out feeding cows in the morning. Some of those coyotes, I mean, they'll follow that the processor down the pasture and back, and I mean, they're so used to that. Can a guy use that? Can a guy go out and scout with the landowner that's out there feeding cows and kind of do that route too?
Yeah. Okay. Because I think on my what I see a lot of times. Let's use antelope for an example. Not trying to compare an antelope to a coyote, but when I go out on those properties when we're hunting antelope, if you park a pickup out on any kind of, field road or two track or fence line or something like that, the antelope are immediately put off by that vehicle sitting out there in the middle of nowhere. And then you get out of the vehicle and you start walking around. But if I park that vehicle at a pump location, those antelope pay zero attention to that pickup. If I drive to a water tank and I'm changing cameras or checking on a blind, I'll have antelope walk right up to the pickup in water with me standing right there. It's happened over and over again. So like a lot of these animals get pretty habituated to the things that normally are being done. And what happens is coyote hunters will hear about that. Oh, there's a coyote every morning here and there's this and there's that. And we can't help ourselves. We got to go driving around through there and get ourselves all amped up. And I think a lot of times we're doing more damage than we're hurting ourselves more than helping ourselves when we're doing that. If you could do that a couple of weeks ahead of time, preferably in the springtime, you've probably heard me say this 1,000 times. The last week of May to all of June, that's your best time period to do your locating for the fall. Because those den pockets are like fishing holes. Once you find a good fishing pocket, right, it's going to be good for, as long as the shade doesn't change or the water clarity. I mean, there's right.
Oh yeah. Well, I hate to cut you off, but we're up against our next break, so we'll come back here and continue talking about this in the second half of the program. Again, Schriefer Red Angus sale, January 20th to 25th. It's a timed online sale only. My apologies if there's a different commercial playing, but that's what they're doing this year. We'll be back right after these messages. There's a reason you're seeing more Red Angus cattle in the country. Great mama cow. All right, YouTube listeners here, we'll be back here shortly here. Just I got your questions coming in. Thank you for having those come in. We'll make sure to get through those here. And Darren, next year, I will try to make it up there to the little bit of tournament time on the pheasant hunting side. So let's see. Wayne, we'll get to your questions here. And thanks everybody else for the comments on my elk. I do appreciate that. Thank you very much. But again, Schriefer at Angus, January 20th to 25th. That's coming up that way.
Bank and Trust has been a leader in ag financing because we understand the business of creating relationships is more than an interest rate. Agriculture is a foundation to the community, and we are here to help your operation expand, grow, and continue to the next generation. Talk to our ag lending team today.
Community looking out for you. At Dakota Community Bank and Trust, that's what we do.
Equal housing lender.
The 31st annual Top Cut Bull Sale is Saturday, January 25th at the 21 Angus Ranch, New England, North Dakota, 1 p.m. sale time. Selling 170 Top Cut bulls featuring proven sires like Baldridge Flagstone, Ellingson Badlands, Musgrave Stunner, and Baldridge Pappy. Born and raised right at the ranch to give you well-mannered, extremely uniform, and deep-bodied genetics. No hoof trimming, no creep feed, and free wintering. For a catalog or to view sale videos, go to 21angus.com. Join the Wolf family for their 31st annual 21 Angus Ranch Top Cut Bull Sale, Saturday, January 25th at the ranch east of New England. Bowman Livestock Marketing, serving the tri-state area for all of your livestock marketing needs. Eastern Montana, North Dakota, and South Dakota. You can be sure of great care for your cattle and top price at sale time. Call Austin Snook at 307-290-2161. That's 307-290-2161 for more information or just to talk cattle markets. You can also find them on Facebook and go to their website, bowmanlivestockmarketing.com.
Hey everyone, it's Kaylee at Soretti Charlet Ranch. Our 42nd annual bull sale is January 24th at the ranch west of Bowman. We are offering 55 performance-tested yearling Charlet bulls, and new this year, 8 virgin age-advantaged Charlet bulls. As always, free delivery up to 300 miles, and we'll feed them free till April 1st. You can follow us at Facebook and DB Auction. Soretti Charlet, January 24th. If you haven't tried a Soretti Charlet bull, ask the cattleman that has. He's the one with the big smile on sale day.
This is Todd with Rounds Angus Union Center, and we invite you to join us at the ranch Saturday, January 25th at 1 o'clock. The bulls look really good and are ready to go to work. From the rough Badlands country and river breaks to rolling hills with big pastures, they are ready to travel. Come take a look at an honest set of bulls out of an honest set of hardworking cows. Give us a call at 605-347-0890. Hope to see you sale day, January 25th at 1 o'clock.
This portion of the program is brought to you by Freedom Repair. Whether it's a tractor, baler, your cutter, your combine, or air seeder, Freedom Repair comes to you and helps you get fixed up and back in the field. 19 plus years experience. Give Lucas Kelly a call at 701-440-1945. That's 701-440-1945. Freedom Repair, veteran owned and operated. Piper's Auction Realty would like to invite you to many of the land sales coming up in the month of January. Land sales in McHenry County, Pierce, Sheridan County, Kidder County, Dunn and Mercer, Pembina County, Marshall County, Minnesota, Pembina Divide, Clay, Morton, Stutzman, Mercer, and Grant and Sioux counties all the way through the month of January. If you have questions or comments about any of these land auctions, you can go to pifers.com today. Western Frontier Insurance, agents that understand you, your needs, and the community. Whether you're looking for coverage on your farm, ranch, home, or auto, you can trust that Western Frontier Insurance will find you a combination of price and coverage that works for you. No fancy jingles, no talking boxes or talking animals, just good neighbors helping to keep you covered with price in mind. Western Frontier Insurance. Offices in Hazen, Washburn, Wilton, Bowman, and Hettinger.
On that road. But don't you worry, one day I'll settle down. And when that time comes, I hope you're still around. I hope you're still around. I hope you're still around.
Welcome back. It's Dakota Prairie Outdoors Saturday edition. Good to have you along here on another Saturday. I would like to say it's a great one, but here at the ranch, it's one above with about 45-mile-an-hour winds. It is not a great Saturday morning, as usually I say there. Jamie Olson, Box Creek Outfitters, my guest. All right, are you ready for some questions, Jamie? Let's go back to basics here. We got a question from Wayne. He says, ask Jamie if he finds it harder to call in big males compared to females. And I'm going to add to that, can you specify which ones you're calling in better than others?
So like the alpha male or whatever, they should be your easiest coyote to call in. I mean, you can make mistakes on them like everybody else and turn them into geniuses, but generally, if he's indeed, so you can't really call specific for size per se, right?
Yeah.
But you can certainly call specific for dominance. And depending on the time of year, but as you get closer to the end of the breeding season, January here, February, as they're starting to really hammer out those territorial breeding boundaries, that if you go into those pockets, and this is why finding those den pockets is so important. I mean, they're den pockets throughout the year. I'm referring to them as den pockets, core areas throughout the year, but they're only really a den when there's a coyote pup in it. But you can challenge how those coyotes in. A lot of times, if you challenge them in their their little pocket, they're going to come at you pretty lit up. The females, a lot of times, I try to make sure that if I have a pair of coyotes come in, that I identify which one is a male, which one is a female. Always try to shoot the female first. The female is going to be your more difficult one to call in once you have made that choice. So if you've got two coyotes sitting there, you can either make things more difficult for yourself or less difficult. If you shoot the female first, the chances of getting that male are extremely high with a little bit of patience. Even if you don't get them right on that stand, coming back the next day, a lot of times, really that coyote's going to come back, that male's going to come back looking for that female. If you shoot the male first, the chances of you getting that female in that area again is really slim. So I would say that the adult, dominant male generally is your most stupid coyote on the property.
Okay.
Your subordinate beta coyotes that are kind of working between the properties, the edges of the territories. So research will show that your dominant alpha male is going to respond to some sort of vocal stimulus upwards in that 50% range. your dominant female is going to respond to a stimulus in that 18 to 20% range. And then you've got everything else, and those can be anywhere from 7% to like 15% of the time that they respond to a audible stimulus. And so there's tons of government research that have gone through this as far as trying to locate coyotes. They go between using sirens, not a wah-wah, but one of the long drawn out, like it would be for a noon whistle in little rural North Dakota town. Those long drawn out. So either with a siren, a recorded coyote vocalization, or else a open reed howler. Government studies will show that the siren will have a higher response rate. And I think it's kind of like shot gobbling almost, that it, with a siren at times you can, they're so loud that I think it's hurting those coyotes' ears a little bit, and some of them are responding just out of that initial blast of that siren. But then that's a proximity issue, and if you use too loud of a siren, you're going to have coyotes howling at you at a distance that you can't hear.
Yeah.
I've got, stories where we've had coyotes howl as far as 4 miles from the point at which the siren was lit off, and you can't hear them at 4 miles. You need to spread guys out. But so like the dominant male, if you want to think about it that way, it's really, I would just go in there and attack him. I'd get right into his core area. You're going to be able to find that by doing your locating in the morning or right at the evening. I would get slipped inside there, and I would just hit a challenge call. Now, that isn't going to, just scream at him a couple times. I mean, you have to be able to identify that that's the coyote, but I mean, generally, if you get into him close enough and do that, that's going to get him uncorked.
So you're talking like a challenge howl, or just
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You just want to scream at him a little bit.
And Darren says, what's the best way to determine which one is the female from 100, 200, 300 yards out?
Well, depending on the time of year, but if it's, we're in January now, so we're right up into the breeding season. That's going to usually come to completion end of February. And so vocalizations are important this time of year, and you're going to have them starting to pair up. But generally, if you got two coyotes standing there, it should be obvious just by size. You're going to have one coyote that looks bigger than another coyote. It is always going to be the case. And if you got young of the year standing in front of you, they're both going to look the same size. The females generally have a more petite looking face, where the males are a little bit more robust. And watch them to see if they stop and defecate, pee, whatever on the way in. You'll get a lot of that going on, especially if you're howling at them, because it's an aggressive territorial response when they're coming in on you, and that usually stimulates them to start marking stuff on the way in. So, it's not it's one of those things that if you practice at, you're going to get better at. But if you're just not thinking about it, and the first coyote that shows up, you're dumping it with no consideration. I mean, high fives all around if you get them knocked down. But if you're really trying to get to a point where you're killing more coyotes per stand, more coyotes per chances of going out, you need to start considering some of these things. And if you can make an obvious decision which is which, I mean, then I would always shoot the female first.
Sure.
But if it isn't so obvious, just enjoy your day hunting, and
kill
it's
some
not the
coyotes.
end all, but it certainly is helpful. Yeah.
So, like, I've been having a lot of good luck, and I know this depends on the area that a person lives in, but I've been having really, really good success calling in coyotes with magpie sounds on my e-collar. And that's we have a ton of magpies in my area. There's some areas that don't have a single magpie, but if you do have them, why is that working so well for me on that side of things?
So there's an old saying, and I think I got this out of a book by Frank Dolby called "The Voice of the Coyote." I think it was written in 1938, and I believe in there it says that not every magpie has a coyote, but every coyote has a magpie.
Mm-hmm.
And so, at times when we were flying around in the mountains looking for coyotes and not finding coyotes, we would look for magpies and ravens, and then hunt underneath the magpies and ravens. So it's a food sound. So So you can, if you go on a stand, I wouldn't necessarily hesitate to bring 2 callers out on the stand, especially on a windy day. And just like putting Canadian geese in your mallard decoy spread as a confidence builder, the same thing with magpies, birds feeding. So when I'm setting up a draw station for a trail snare line, the draw station, I mean, it really isn't for the coyotes. The draw station itself is for the birds. So when you set up a draw station, or a bait location, if you're running poison, but a draw location for traps and snares, you want your birds to be able to work on that. Like if you find a frozen carcass, you either take an axe or a chainsaw and cut those things up, get them open, because you want the birds to work on. The birds are going to be making the noise. You're going to have that visual at a distance. So yeah, as a confidence builder, or even as a standalone location, those coyotes, predators in general, are very attracted to feeding birds.
Yeah. And what if you have no magpies normally in your area? Can a guy still use that sound? Will coyotes know what it is? Or if there's never been a magpie in that area, will they even know what's happening?
I just don't know if they're smart enough to be trying to distinguish. Boy, we don't have magpies in this area. I wish that was a blackbird making that noise. I just don't think that's what's going on.
True enough.
It could be.
Yeah.
They're smart animals, but they're usually smart only because they had a bad reaction to something. Yeah, and so if there's just chattering birds, I think just means food for them. But we should have magpies throughout the Midwest,
Yeah. No, it's crazy how that changed, because I don't care who you are. You always go back to your basics, right? I mean, if you started calling and something worked, it seems like that's what you go back to every single time. And I'm guilty of that too. So I'm trying to branch out a little bit more and try different things. And that's one thing that really did help me was the magpie side of things too. So, I
think those magpies and pup coyotes,
yeah,
are another confidence builder. Like to play your prey distress, but then by adding some other things onto that in the wild you would hear if there's coyotes feeding on something, more than one, you're going to have some yelping and some biting. They're trying to kill a rabbit. The rabbit grabs them, bites them on the lip or something like that. You're going to get some squealing. Also, when you're doing the rabbit squalls, you got to be thinking about what's actually happening out in the wild. When you hear rabbit squalls in the wild, a lot of times it's a bird, a hawk, an owl, an eagle killing a rabbit. And so when that coyote shows up, he's expecting to see something. And if you've ever sat on a side hill and watched, eagles and hawks killing rabbits, when they hit them on the ground, they're usually rolling around with them a little bit. And you get that black and white flash from that wing, just like when you're calling in geese and you got your flag, your black and white flag.
Yep.
When the coyote's coming in, he's expecting to see some movement. When they're standing there, they're looking for some movement. They're looking for, where do I go from here?
Yeah. And
so those decoys are kind of nice, but you got to be careful with that stuff too,
Well,
a flag can be pretty useful.
Yeah, and then you got to be careful too. You're carrying in a lot of stuff all the time, and sometimes you can get over. If I use my e-collar, if I'm by myself, I'll take my e-collar, but I have my hand calls, and I know that some of these e-collars you can play 2 sounds at once. I am not smart enough to figure that out yet. So if I'm playing one sound, I kind of do a little bit with my mouth calls, a little bit on the side. So, but
I think that's the move.
Yeah, but what do you say, e-collar or mouth calls? Which way would you go?
I probably haven't drug an e-call with me for 5 or 6 years now.
Yeah,
it just, like you say, it just gets to be more stuff to drag around with.
Yeah.
I would say if you're trying to, speaking of e-collar, there's an app called Audiophile or Animal Audio. Sorry about that.
Okay.
It's an app you can get, and it's got thousands of sounds on there for calling in coyotes. There's a bunch of free ones, and then I've got my sounds on there, coyotehunter.net. I got my sounds on there as well.
Is this something you can use on your phone? I mean,
you load them up.
Is that loud enough to use your phone or not?
It'll work on anything. You can just upload it to your e-collar. They're MP3 files and stuff like that. So whatever device you load it up on, you can just plug it into your e-collar and load it up.
Yeah.
anyways, the reason why I bring that up is because it gives you some opportunities that sounds that I can't make myself. So, like for instance, my favorite sound to use in the fall is a red fox pup distress. Now, I've gotten away with using a gray fox pup distress in North Dakota and killed lots of coyotes with a gray fox pup distress. We don't have gray fox up there, but it's a great sound that other people don't use. I've also called in coyotes using jackals. And and it's just a different. Jackals sound kind of like a coyote. They're very high pitched, a lot more chirping and stuff in there. But sometimes it's a curiosity thing as much as anything. But those pup distress, those red fox pup distress, coyotes seem to come unglued on that. And then once they start getting past January, I'm almost exclusively vocalization. So if a guy isn't good with using a howler in that way, I mean, I think everybody can do a rapid distress.
Yeah.
But I think those electronic calls, especially for the beginner, I think those are a great way to get the ball rolling without worrying that you are the cause of not a coyote coming in.
Right. So we got a couple of questions getting text in. Let's get to them here. It says, ask Jamie, sounds at night, if you're night hunting, should they be different than what you're using during the day?
I don't know why it would be.
Okay.
I think the time of year has more importance than the time of day.
Okay.
You're going to have like the springtime, more vocalizations, the fall, a lot of small predator sounds, like early in the fall, September and October. You don't want to be going out there doing a bunch of challenge calls because you got a bunch of pups, a bunch of young of the year running around that you're just going to scare out of it. So I think it's more determined on the time of year, maybe an idea of the overall age of the coyote you're calling to, but I don't know if it would matter much. But, squealing rabbit at 2 a.m. or 2 p.m. probably should be the same.
Okay. Tim says, how cold does it have to be before it's just fruitless to go hunt coyotes? And I'll tell you this, you had that tournament in Mandan. It was 32 below ambient temperature. It was the best coyote calling I have ever had.
Yeah.
It was bitter. It was nasty, but it was really good. When do you call quits on it's too cold? Like this morning with the wind, I'd be like, I'm done.
Yeah, for me, it's a wind thing, not so much the temperature. So if it starts getting, for calling, for me, a perfect wind would be in that 5 to 10 miles an hour. Once I start getting over 10, I'm having trouble hearing. So like if I'm doing locating, I'm having trouble hearing the coyote howl back. My cutoff generally is around 15 miles an hour.
Yeah. If
I got a steady 15, but it has more to do with me not enjoying it, as opposed to I can't kill coyotes in that.
Right.
I get to hunt coyotes every day of the week on private land. I can go when I want to. I run a lot of equipment. I run hundreds and hundreds of sets, so I can be a little picky on what days I go out. But I've killed coyotes in every awful weather condition you can possibly imagine as needed. I mean, sometimes I think when you got a lot of wind, you got to get closer. And when it's cold and you don't have any wind, it seems like they'll come from every direction at whatever distance they can hear you because they're needing food to keep warm.
Yeah. Gene asked, with hides worth nothing this year, are we seeing an increase in numbers, or is it just because of the mild winter that we've had? Because I know you and I talked about this before we got on the radio side. The numbers of coyotes seem to be astronomical this year.
Oh, yeah. My numbers are, I haven't had numbers on my trap line in probably 10, 12 years.
Yeah.
And I trap the same stuff year round. So, I can really get a feel for it. I think it's the low prices and things cycle through. And right now we're getting an uptick on our jackrabbits out here. So you want to be looking at your food as well. So if you're noticing more rabbits, maybe more ground squirrels, more mice and stuff like that, I think those predator populations will follow that. Probably not as closely as, say, Canadian lynx do to the snowshoe hare, but nonetheless, I think as food's available, that those numbers go up. But there's just not as many people hunting them. I know out here, when I go turn in my ears, I get a bounty out here. So when I turn them into the feed store, there's just nobody turning in ears.
Really?
I think there's guys out there shooting them. Yeah.
Oh.
It's been that way for about a year and a half out here, where I go and then there'd be a dozen guys turning ears in.
Is that because of the prices or what?
Yeah, I think what happens is the guys will still go out and do some calling on the weekend, but the guys who are running big snare lines, trap lines, those guys are ones killing a lot of animals.
Yeah.
I don't think those guys are out doing that stuff. I get paid by the ranches and so on and so forth, so it all works out for me. But a lot of guys are really dependent on that fur check, and you just can't make a go of it with a $25 put-up coyote. There's just too much time invested into it. So I think they're leaving them lay. Though I know guys who are skinning them and putting them up and saving them. I've probably got 60 to 80 coyotes that are all put up and folded and wrapped up in 3 mil poly bags, and I'm just sitting on them. But I've only skinned 2 coyotes all winter so far.
Really?
Everything else is just I'm cutting the glands out. I take the ears off, and then they just go in a pile. They're just not, especially a Wyoming coyote. Under the best conditions right now, if I got a $15 to $20 average on, my best winter coyotes, that would be. It's just not time. Yeah, I would say the low prices is what's causing the numbers go up. There's just less people working on them.
Yeah, and honestly, last winter was, kind of I would say, more of an open winter up in this Dakota territory, and this winter definitely has been a little bit. We probably get some winter here coming in for the next few weeks here, but man, I tell you what, they got food, they got shelter, they got grass is high in certain areas, before the drought hit and everything. So anyway, we'll continue this more after the show here, after the radio side. We'll continue on to the YouTube side. We got more questions coming in, but we just want to thank here, Jamie, thank you so much here, Box Creek Outfitters. They want more information. How do they find you?
You could go to Facebook, coyotehunter.net, also Box Creek Outfitters, that Animal Audio, that app. There's a bunch of free stuff on there too, and there's a bunch of weird sounds that you haven't heard. That'd be a good place to go. So yeah.
Perfect. All right, have yourself a good weekend. Enjoy, eat some meat, drink some milk, wear fur and wool. Have a good weekend, everybody. Thanks for tuning in today. All right, stations, thank you so much. We'll give them about 30 seconds here before we go in. I got some questions here on the YouTube channel side of things that they're still listening here. Stay with me, Josh.
Yeah.
But Josh asked, what's the reason behind cutting the ears off and the glands? The ears are your bounty, but what's the glands?
So for trapping, of course, so I'm pulling out the anal gland, which there's 2 little pea-sized glands, one on each side of the vent, the anus. So I'll pull out 1 inch or 2 of the colon along with that with the vent. And then on the back of the hock, there's another pea-sized gland that's encased in a bunch of fat. So right on the back of the hock, the back of the knee per se, if you open that up, there's a seam in the muscle that you open up, and then there's a pocket in there about the size of your thumb that's wrapped in fat, and there's a little pea-sized gland in there. So I pull those glands out, I grind those up, and then you taint them, you let them sit for a period of time, and then I add a preservative to them, also a fixative, which allows it to evaporate at an even rate, maybe some propylene glycol so I can work with it, and then jar that up, and I use that in my trap line.
Okay. And the ears, you just turn those, you said the local feed store does the bounties?
Yeah, so I take a picture of every animal that I get. I have a sheet that I fill out that tells the sex, the date, which ranch. Once I get those sheets filled out, my bounty sheets, there's 10 coyotes per sheet. Also red fox, I can put red fox on there. Once that sheet is filled up, I take it to the ranch signs off on each one of those coyotes. Then once I've got all my signatures, then I take that to the feed store. I turn in the sheet with my ears. He keeps the ears. He gives me a blue ticket to go along with my bounty sheet. I take that, then I drive it over to the county extension office and leave that with them. Then they take that, they run it to the predator board meeting, which has to get authorized and signed by 2 members of the predator board, and then they issue me a check.
Holy
That's
cow.
a lot. Yeah. But last month I got, well, it varies. So like last month, I think I turned in, what did I turn in? 4 or 5 sheets? I turned in 5 sheets last month. So that was like $1,200. And that's just that's just the county, of course. The ranch pays me a bounty on top of that, plus they pay me by the hour, and then I get a stipend for expenses. So it's
It's
great for me.
It is. It's too bad that like in North Dakota here, we're kind of limited what we can do. They say, well, we can protect our cattle with any means possible. But I guarantee that if I would hire somebody with a helicopter and start shooting coyotes in the Badlands, they would get pretty pissy about that, right? So
Yeah.
what does any means possible really mean? It's such a gray area. We can't run them down on sleds. We can't use snares after a certain time during calving season. We can't use them during then. So I mean, unless you call the the USDA trapper, he's the only one that can fly. He's the only one that can do that. But then you go to South Dakota, and if you own your own private land, you can fly your land whatever you can do that. So why is it so different from state to state to help the ranchers out?
I think it's so like in Wyoming, they're pretty organized. Every county has a predator board that the county commissioners have authorized to allocate funds and stuff like that. And then they lobby to the Wool Growers Association and the Cattlemen's Association for a percentage of the branding fee. And this is all done, I mean, this is all private per se. I mean, they're ranchers working with ranchers. But they set up a percentage of the branding fee to go back to these individual counties. There's a state predator board that helps allocate the funds as needed per county. And then with that, with those county funds, then they can hire a county trapper. They could also sign an agreement with Wildlife Services. They can do those in conjunction. And then even in North Dakota, I know you can get an authorization to fly privately. I know there's at least one guy over there that used to have that. But it's just a matter of going through the process. And in Wyoming here, for instance, they just, it's been going on like this for 50 years. When I first got out here, one of the guys on the predator board, he had been on that predator board for 53 years. So Wyoming or North Dakota just, the counties would have to, the ranchers would have to, they need to create their, work with the county commissioners and create their own entity. Yeah. So you have a point of what am I trying to say? A point of where somebody has to be responsible to. Wildlife Services needs to be responsible to a county entity where you have elected officials that they have to.
Interesting.
I think that's where I would start. Yeah.
Interesting. And you're right. The law starts at the county level, and by creating a Slope County, I'm just thinking here in my own county, that would be great to have a predator board that we could make our own type of judgments and rules in our own county to protect livestock. Because the USDA guy,
the branding fees.
Yeah, he does a great job, but he's stretched out on half of the state. They got him stretched out so darn long. It's hard to get him, very quickly if you're having issues. And
but if your county had money, like you had, like you have a coyote tournament, you raise $5,000 for the coyote tournament. That money goes into the kitty for your county predator board.
Yeah.
You take that money, you go to the Wildlife Services, and you say, we want to purchase some more aerial time for our county. We've got $5,000. They're going to say, well, we charge $175 an hour for a plane, and then you say, well, we want 50 hours. They want that airplane to be busy. They want things for it to do. Right. All government agencies want stuff to do, so it's just a matter of who's paying for it. So, even grants, one of the things that we would do is we'd apply for grants for rabies mitigation, for instance, roundworm testing for raccoons, heartworm testing for coyotes. And so we would get money from, so this goes back to your pork barrel project, your special interest stuff that everybody throws a fit about when they're talking about it on the news about all this frivolous stuff that gets thrown in there. But some of that frivolous stuff is money for these agencies to stay busy enough that when you actually need them, right, their doors are still open. And so there's money available for all these programs. You must have a state biologist that works for Wildlife Services. Find them some stuff to do. Do a sage grouse observation. Find out who's eating your ground nesting birds. Talk to Delta Waterfall. Maybe they got some money available for that for killing coyotes. So there's money out there, but you guys got to start by first kind of getting yourselves to sit down around a table and work with I see what the county attorney has to say, what the county commissioners have to say, and then start contacting groups about getting money for your county to do some of this mitigation. And then once you've got them coming there to do this stuff, it's easier to get them to start working on the beaver and the coyote issues.
So how does a person find somebody like you that would just do this full time or even part time for that matter? How does a person find those type of people that would do that? I mean, we're all so busy around here. I mean, how do you get somebody that would do that?
They run ads out here. We get people coming over here interviewing from all over the country trying to be a Wyoming trapper. Yep. But, so here's the pay side of it, though. You're probably looking on the bottom end to get a trapper. You're probably looking at, now this is a full-time trapper, which is kind of what you want.
Yep.
But you're probably looking at somewhere around, on the low end, around $65,000 to $72,000 a year, and probably upwards to $95,000 a year, because they got to buy their gas, they got to pay for all their equipment. I mean, that's about what it would cost. And for a county to put a $1 brand fee together that's put back into the predator board, and then get matching funds from state and federal organizations. Hey, we got $40,000 here that we put aside for predator control, and there's matching funds out there. And then that's how you start attaching these other programs to it. We want to do a skunk rabies, so they'll go in there and they'll trap a certain amount of skunks and they'll test them for rabies. And when I worked for Wildlife Services, I had to catch and test five skunks a year. Now, it was only 5, but I think it was $5,000 per county or $10,000 per county we got just to test those handful of skunks. There was 3 trappers, so there was 3 of us that were doing, so, whatever that was. But, yeah, there should be, Wildlife Services should be able to, I would think they'd be able to work with you or your state or your county, state representative should be able to get you access to what grants are available for testing on these stuff, get some money coming into your county. Yeah. Interesting.
I've never heard of that as a county to do their own predator board like that. That's you got the wheels turning in my head here, Jamie, because that would be kind of the way to go. That we're having issues out here, and we really do. And the only way to go about it is, we're trying to take matters in our own hands. But, to get it's not a state trapper, it's a USDA trapper, in order to get him.
But you can hire county trappers.
Right.
You guys can.
Right. But if you have the board put together, you could do that.
You guys definitely need to get organized a little bit in that way. But I would think that's where it would start, and then you could also petition to be using some of the other devices as well.
Right.
And I don't see why you guys couldn't get the use of M44s. They should have the state. They have a pest control board or whatever, so you can get certified for the application of certain types of poisons. So like prairie dogs, if you want to kill prairie dogs, you have to get certified for the type of poison, so you can go buy the poisons. You have to get an applicator's license.
Yep.
Well, it's no different with M44s. And so out here, you can get a state applicator's license for M44s for your private property, and the rules and regulations for them are very doable. I think there's like 25 rules that you got to follow, but they're all real doable, especially when they're private land. But that'd be another thing that you guys could.
Yeah.
What we did out here is that the Wolverines Association hired an attorney to write an opinion, and then submitted that as far as who's responsible for coyotes, who's financially responsible for coyotes. The state sets the laws and the regulations and how they can be hunted and handled. Well, then does that afford them the ability to be responsible for the losses themselves? Out here, it was determined that they were.
Really?
But
Huh.
yeah, the state
Interesting.
owns and manages the wildlife. And if you own and manage the wildlife, so they hired Wildlife Services basically as an insurance policy, so they didn't have to pay individual losses to each rancher for. Yeah, so they hired an attorney out here to go write an opinion about who was responsible for, And it was
Interesting.
just an opinion, it's an opinion, but that's what got the ball rolling for the federal, for the money.
I'll be damned.
And the wolves had something to do with that too, so the state is bringing wolves in here. They're financially responsible for the damage that they cause. And it should be like having to deal with some private entity. It's the federal government that's dragging this stuff in here.
How do you prove that?
Well, this is why that opinion was written. Like, at least with the dead stuff, like if you found one wolf-killed calf out here, I think the multiplier is if you find one, they pay you for 5.
I see.
The second you start using like lethal control on wolves, then a lot of times those animal rights groups will no longer pay for your losses. But
yeah. I just have a hard time working with any animal rights group. It's but no, it's good information because I never thought about putting a county board together to so we can have more opportunity. And
I spoke at Delta. Yeah, I spoke at Delta Waterfall. They paid me to come out and do a seminar to all their trappers years ago. I was going to talk to you about that to see if there'd be any interest to do at some cattlemen's association get together. If there'd be any interest to do or have somebody like me come in and do a seminar on coyote, mitigation, coyote predator control on livestock, because it is drastically different than fur trapping.
Yeah.
And I listen to guys that think they know what predator control. So like to go in and just kill an alpha male off your calving grounds, that's almost like the worst thing you could do. You almost like make it worse when you do that. There's but most ranchers won't even like give it any thought. They're just shooting willy nilly. But if you're having a long-term program to reduce the number of coyotes on your property, shooting a few out the window of the truck while you're feeding isn't really the way to do that. I always hear out here a dead coyote's a good coyote, but there really is, over a period of time, a significant difference between just shooting willy-nilly and having a plan of this is how I'm going to address this issue and do it consistently with pressure over a long period of time, just like you would with any other maintenance that you do on a ranch, like fencing or vaccination or so on and so forth.
Yep.
There's things that we do with consistency that were brought down from generations. This is how we handle this. And coyotes, it's just I don't think people realize that there's actually a way that is, there's always a better method. But if you don't know what the better method is, you're kind of just stuck with whatever you've been doing in the past,
Right. Exactly. So I have every year in June, we have our local grazing association annual meeting. And that would be, just basically anybody who has a grazing permit, Bowman, Slope County, teetering up north a little bit too. But I think that would be kind of a neat seminar for you to come in and do that instead of having, because the Game and Fish shows up and they always give a little speech. And I guarantee if we'd bring somebody like you that would say, hey, we can do this on a county level, they would pucker a little bit and realize we're looking into this and we're serious about this stuff. Especially if you could bring some of the details about, the state is, in Wyoming, the state had to pay for losses because the state owns and manages the animals. And I guarantee they would pucker like crazy. So I might offer that if that's okay. So, I don't know what you usually get paid or anything. We usually don't bring people in that we have to pay because we don't have that much money, but I guess we'll keep in touch with that, but let me run it past the board a little bit. I think that would be pretty cool.
Yeah, I think they need to, you guys need to have like a kind of a slush fund, and then have it voted on by the county commissioners about where the ranchers or your branding inspector or however you guys do that. But we assessed a tax to those ranchers that went directly back to the ranchers within their county. That money didn't leave the county, doesn't leave the county. And so if you're running, if you're running 50,000 head of livestock in your county, there's 50 grand, there's a buck, or whatever you decide to do,
Right.
25 cents or a $1 branding fee. All the sheep people have to do a dollar fee, and I can't remember what the cows are. I think they were similar because you're going to lose more sheep than you're going to lose cows, I suppose. You guys have how many livestock do you have in your county?
Plenty. We way more than people. That's for damn sure, because it's the smallest county in North Dakota. So I couldn't tell you the number wise. That would have to be a grazing association. We don't do anything by the head per se, unless we're running on.
You have a branding inspector?
Well, everybody's got a brand inspector around here. Depends on if you're going to cross state lines or not. But most of us don't need brand releases until we sell at the auction market on anything. So,
well, it'd be self-reporting though. I mean, this would be
right.
Here a rancher can opt. So here a rancher can opt out.
Right.
They don't have to do it.
Right.
But then if they call and say, "Hey, I need help," then they charge them some X amount of fee, and then get them back into the program. If you opt out of the program, anyway, you can handle that how you want. But there's an opt-in and opt-out. It is not forced upon anybody.
How about?
But if you're not in it, you don't get to use it.
I see one thing that somebody would probably come up with, and they'd probably say, well, I'm having an issue. I pay this money in. I'm still having issues, and I haven't seen the guy come out and trap for a week and get all pissy about it. Is that?
Well, you're definitely going to have some of that, but
right?
Every one of those situations is going to be individual. But they do have to. What happens here is they come to the predator board meeting, and you just work through those problems. I could tell you all kinds of stories like that, but for the most part, though, everything goes really smooth. You got to have good, you got to have people. So you could use you could still just use wildlife services, I would imagine. But if you guys have a point of contact, it's not just a rancher, it's the president of the predator board calling, or the president of XYZ group from, Slope County.
Right.
But yeah, we had some. But for the most part, though, so you're opting to get in there, and it's going to be a bumpy road at first. But you got to start somewhere.
Right.
And then at least at that point, you have like if all hands on deck. If you got a rancher that's getting killed on, there's a way of setting up the priorities for that. I mean, a guy could sit down and work through that. But you would call they would call me up. I get a lot of phone calls from ranchers. I was working on about 500,000 acres every month. And so I'd get a lot of phone calls from ranchers, and that was just prioritized by the time of year. So like calving grounds, they're getting killed on calving grounds. Those are a huge priority. If we had coyotes in our lambing grounds for our sheep, that's a huge priority if we got killing going on. But if somebody just calls up and said, "Hey, I seen a coyote in the northwest pasture,"
yeah,
that went on the list. But if there wasn't any killing going on, and North Dakota doesn't have check laws on the gear, and so what if you're running, like for instance, like if I came up to your place and spent 3 days running gear on your place, loading it up, right, just carpet bomb the whole thing, I could walk away from that and have you check that equipment.
Yeah.
And watch that equipment.
Right.
And that was a common practice back in the day when you just didn't have enough trappers. And so the trapper would show up, help you get everything set up. And then it was kind of your responsibility to kind of watch that. And then with that trapper working with you a little bit. If you want a trapper that's going to be working for the county and he's trying to maintain 75 to 125 pieces of equipment on you and another 200 pieces on the neighbor, and then all the way over here, he's got to run another, you're going to start running into problems.
Yeah.
But it's a longer conversation And it really depends on how many ranchers are in the program, how much livestock they're running, so on and so forth. But that's what I do.
Yeah.
I'd get that set up, and I'd start petitioning to try to get your own plane. Maybe not buy a plane, but I'm sure you could find somebody that you could lease one from. If not, it'd probably be cheaper to get it from Wildlife Services.
It probably is, but I got a buddy in South Dakota that builds planes specifically for coyote hunting. And, but yeah, see, the thing with Wildlife Services, when they came out to my place, they had a certain height they had to fly and a certain speed, and it was way too high, way too fast for this rough ground. I mean, it's one thing.
Helicopters, then. Recip helicopters.
We would, or allow us to hire somebody out of state and we don't have to follow those rules.
Well, there's a guy right over in Miles City. Miles.
Glendive. I had a guy from Glendive offer to come over with a helicopter, but the state wouldn't allow it.
So you have to. I know the state has a contact your county attorney.
Oh,
there's a process for. This is what I'm saying. Going to the county commissioner, because they can direct her to do that stuff. But there's or hire one. Get your group together, and you guys go spend a couple $1,000 bucks. But find out what the rules actually are, and then you just start going through the process of filling out the paperwork and getting it done. Because what happens is everybody waits till they need an airplane, and but the guy has, out here, you have to have a documented X amount of hours. I think helicopter hours, you need a minimum of 500 hours. On airplane, it might be a little bit more than that. But you got to have the proper insurance for it. You got to have, I know there's a process in place, at least at one time in North Dakota, because I know there was a guy that was doing it.
I'm not sure anymore.
But that's the kind of stuff, though, that I would think the county commissioners that's where I'd start. I'd start with the county commissioner.
Yeah, I'll bring it up. I know them very well, so I'll have to bring it up to them and see what they think about this. To be able to get enough money to hire somebody full time, we'll have to put our thinking caps on that one pretty hard, but we'll see.
Well, like I said, I would tack it onto the branding fee, and then also see if you can find some matching. Out here, we get matching funds. We get the state and federal money available for that stuff. You guys just need an attorney to start digging into it and finding out what's available.
If you would ever meet our state's attorney for our county, you would just shake your head and just say, "Why is she here?" The most liberal person I've ever seen in my life in the most conservative county I've ever seen. And
does any of the ranchers in your county have family members that are attorneys that are ranch related? Anything that's I
don't know that. I couldn't answer that.
I believe they hired a private firm, but it wasn't like a pile of money. I mean, if it was $5,000 or something like that, it wasn't like it. Anyways, there's grassroots stuff, man. It always takes, you gotta get a group of people together to start sharing some responsibilities
I think you're on a different playing level, because you said, it's not a lot of money. It's only $5,000. $5,000's a lot of money to me, buddy. So
but it should be a group, though. It should be just you. It should be you sitting there with 20 other ranchers. Maybe it's five counties. Maybe it's 3 counties. But I would say that it's got to be something like that, where you're putting I would use your bully pulpit and try to set up a meeting time and start getting state representatives to show up at it, start to get county commissioners to show up at this meeting, and make sure you have an agenda so those people aren't coming just to listen to you bitch.
Right.
You should have this is what, and so I'm telling you, finding out what the state rules are for getting a plane for your county, to have a contractor that you can pay to come in and do it. Find out what it would take to add, or maybe there's money already on the branding fees that's being allocated to something that you guys are like, we'd rather have that money allocated to this.
Right.
I don't know what it is, but it starts with first finding out how many people are interested in it, getting them in a room, and then getting those local politicians, getting them to show up at those meetings. And if they're not showing up, I guess they don't get a vote the next time. It's a small community. You know?
Exactly. I like it. You got me thinking a lot of things here. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
But hey, I better get running. I got to go feed cows and get this elk cut up yet. So it's going to be, I got to bring it into the house and thaw it out first because it's still out in the shop. So.
Oh, goodness. Yeah. Well, have fun with that.
I had
nothing funner than cutting up cold meat.
Yeah. I had a long day yesterday. It's like, it is where it is. And I'll get it here today. I got the weekend to let it thaw out and get after it. So, but anyway.
Well, good luck with that. If you think of it, send me pictures of that bull, man. 8x9. There must be horns all over the place.
8x6. Yeah.
Still.
Yeah. I'll send you what I have. Bud. All right, man. Have a good one. See ya.
All right. Yeah. Bye.
All right, YouTubers. Thanks, Josh. Thanks, Master John. Thank you, guys. I tell you what, he is a wealth of knowledge. Never short of words, that's for damn sure. So, yeah, I'm thinking about putting some type of a board together, see if I can get that working. It'd be nice. We got so many people in this county that are dealing with it, and Brent does a nice job helping out every year, but man, he is stretched thin. So, anyway. Have yourself a good one. Enjoy. Happy New Year. We'll catch you next week.